Hey there everyone, it's Janet Wakeland with Remarkably Created. Happy Wednesday. We are going to be taking a look at some ideas for using vellum in your projects as well as ways to adhere vellum. And I'm going to showcase for you my favorite new way that I recently discovered and have started using and wish I had known about this all 20 some years that I've been a crafter. So vellum is a different type of paper. It is sheer, so it's usually something that's a little bit see-through. And Stampin' Up's vellum is not quite cardstock weight, but it's heavier than designer paper and a little bit lighter than our cardstock. So it definitely has some stiffness to it. And our vellum is sold as 12 by 12 sheets. Currently in the Stampin' Up lineup, we have this beautiful pack of vellum here, okay, our Floral Delight vellum, floral and gingham. So you've got your gingham piece, your blue flowers, and then your sheer. Let me hold them this way so you can kind of get a better idea. And again, they are 12 by 12. I have mine cut down to 6 by 6 because I was including them in paper shares. Then the other one is our greenery vellum. And some of you may have remembered this from the holidays. And yes, this is a little bit of a pine sprig, but this is definitely not Christmas. A great vellum here, little dots. And then you've got this beautiful piece of frosted vellum. And then another one is called our mercury glass. It's gold on one side, and what I love is when you flip it over, you've got this matte side that has a little bit of a silver look to it, but it's not shiny. It's nice and matte. So my first tip with vellum when you're working with it is while it doesn't always look like it, vellum is double-sided. The image is usually printed on the front, which means the back side is a little bit more subdued. And the best way to tell that is kind of to hold it to the light a little bit and see which side has the darker image. Or in the case, for example, of this frosted, depending on how I hold it to the light, can you see the little bit of shine that it grabs? When I do it on this side, it's matte. You can use either or side depending on what look you're going for. Maybe you want the matte, you don't want a little bit of sheen to it. Or in the case of this mercury, again, it was designed and it's called mercury glass because of the gold that's printed on the front, but maybe you want that matte back finish. So that's my first tip, is that it is double-sided, okay? So let's take a look at a few card ideas, and then I'm going to showcase for you lots of different ways that you can alter your vellum. So here we can see this fun piece that was layered onto the front. So just using it like cardstock. Again, layering it onto the front. It folds nice and easy for you. Using it just as a small accent piece behind. Again, just as that background piece. Another fun way is to use it as a window, kind of like a piece of stained glass, so that when you open up the card, you can see that window still just a little bit. One of the first ways to alter your vellum is one of the easiest ways, and that depends on the type of cardstock that you put behind it or you use with it. So here in this case, I've got Balmy Blue behind the vellum. I have Crumb Cake behind the vellum. And for this piece, I adhered the vellum onto a piece of basic white, okay, to really make that vellum pop. So that's one of the first ways to alter it, is simply by changing up the color of paper that you put against it. Another way that you have of altering your vellum is just to treat it like paper. Basically anything that you do to paper, you can do to vellum. Die cut, punch, stamp on it, marker on it, sponge on it, broidery, you name it, you can do all of it. When die cutting vellum, because it is a little stiffer, and because it's kind of at that place between cardstock and your designer paper, it may prove just a bit of a challenge when you're doing very detailed pieces in your dies. Your larger pieces, your more solid pieces like a circle or something pop out. But these may prove a little more challenging. That's where this little tool for your U-Pick tool will come in handy. It's part of the new crafters tips that are available as an adapter. And I keep my U-pick tool like this at my die cutting station. I have the die cutting brush so that I can, brush pieces out. And then I have this here. I call it a dental pick. Some people call it a channel tool. I think that's its official paper crafting name because it's designed to get into this channel. Now on Stampin' Up! Dies, you'll see these little holes. These little holes are called release holes. And so one of the first things that I recommend that you do is just simply press that punch down inside, or that U-pick tool kind of down inside. And that starts to release that paper from up inside. And then you just want to very gently start to pull. And as it starts to stick, you're going to get that, especially here on the little stems, you're going to get the point of that U-pick tool down in that channel, and you're going to just use that to start to help you lift those edges up. And I will usually work from both ends as it loosens up and from places where it is loose, and just kind of work it nice and slow, okay? So that's where that U-pick tool is going to come in handy. And then as it starts to lift up, you're just going to be able to pull it up and out of that, okay? So using that pick and just going very slow and definitely employing those release holes is going to help you when you're using vellum on very detailed dies, okay? So let's bring this in, just because I didn't put my glass mat down today. And I have two different images here, one embossed in white, one embossed in black. You could emboss in gold or silver, or if you have other color embossing, that works as well. But a favorite technique for vellum is something called stained glass. And that's where you're going to take your Stampin' Write markers. And I find when I'm doing this stained glass technique, the darker the better. You could also use your Stampin' Blends if you're working on a larger, like these tulips are pretty large. I could actually go in there and use my Stampin' Blends, especially if I wanted to do a little bit of shading. But just to quickly kind of give you an idea of what this would look like. And I'm not worried about going outside the lines as far as, like over these white lines, because it's not going to show, okay? I do worry about going out here into the additional vellum, except for in this case, it's going to be die cut, so I'm not going to be super fussy. But I can go in and do a little bit of shading, darken it up a little bit if I want to. You've got the fine point on here, which is really nice. Like, let's just give these centers a little yellow bit to them. And let's make them pink. I also find that sometimes if the markers I'm working with are a little bit lighter, letting it dry, which just takes just a few seconds, and then going back over it again will darken it. The darker markers, and let's just get a little bit of green on it so that you get that whole wow pop, okay? So let's just do a little bit of that, and let's just get our green in here. These are the new mixed media stamps, and they are just mixed floral stamps from the Mixed Media Florals bundle, and they are just beautiful. Sorry, I've got the sniffles. And I won't finish the whole thing, but you're going to have an idea after this, kind of the look and what can happen when coloring them. And then let me just borrow this one for 1 second, because this does have, like a little vein down the center, and I want you to see it through the... Okay, so I've colored on the back side. When I flip that around, you're going to have this really beautiful, muted, soft look. But this is also why you want to use some of your darker colors, your bold brights, your neutrals, your regals would work great. And again, if you are going to use some of the pastels, maybe going over them twice to darken them up just a little bit works wonderful. And again, it doesn't matter if you are doing black. Sorry about the phone, guys. Normally, I don't get phone calls this time of the day, so I didn't think to mute it. So it'll be done here in just a second. And I'm just going to talk over it, but I do apologize for that. But I find that the only difference is, you know, this is going to give you a black outline, kind of like when you stamp something in black and color it, or white. But again, that beautiful stained glass look. You're going to emboss on the front, and then you're going to flip it over and color. You could also, if you want to, though, it doesn't give it the same muted look as stained glass, but you can indeed color directly on the front of it as well, if you want that look. And some of your colors will be that much more bold because you're not muting them by coloring on the underside. So your colors will really pop if you're gonna color them up here on the top of that. And let me just hold that back up there for you so you can color on your vellum, okay? So that's something fun to do and a great use of those Stampin' Right markers. So that's something wonderful. Again, remember, anything that you do to cardstock, you can do to, or designer paper, you can do. In this case, I just kind of crumpled it all up. I want to make it look a little vintage. And I'm going to just take my blending brush now, and I'm just going to brush it over the top. And it's just going to kind of go across where those wrinkles were. You can hear it crinkling. And then I'll want to adhere it down, and we'll do that in just a second. But I can start to give it a distressed look. So crinkling it works great. You can get those markers back out, and you can color directly on the paper. So this is, hold on, see if I have a piece of it handy that's not colored on. I know I just had it because I showed you guys all 4 patterns. We'll find it in just a second. But here you can see I added some pink to the little leaves, added a little bit of bashful blue, colored directly on the flowers. So you can color directly on that vellum, changing the colors up in any way that you want it to be. Something else that's actually very stunning and very beautiful is to use embossing folders on it. Because of the stiffness of vellum, you will usually get a little bit of kind of a white line on your vellum. Not as much here on the plaid, but you can really see it here with the eyelet. Look how that is white, okay? Because it's creasing that vellum and giving it that look. This is the blue gingham, but look how that totally changes the look. So playing around with your embossing folders are gonna give it an amazing look. Embossing folders are one of my favorite things to do with vellum. And while we have that in our hands, let me show you something about that. So I've got a piece of vellum here. It's just a scrap piece. And Stampin' Up! Has these foam paper piercing mats. These are great to work with for this technique. And then additional adapters for the U-Pick tool. There are these ball stylus, and there's 2 different sizes of ball stylus. A really thick one and a narrow one. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very gently start to score, kind of put marks on my vellum. And that's going to essentially do the same thing that the embossing folder does. So you're going to be able to create those white lines. Can you see how that created the white lines? That's also what allowed me to, so I've got this beautiful embossed cross. I'm going to turn it upside down. We're going to use that mask here in just a minute. And with my ball stylus, I'm just going to very carefully go around the shape of this cross here, because I want it to pop up just a little bit as if it was embossed with an embossing folder. But you just want to go real slow and gentle. You don't want to push this through the paper, okay? And you can see I'm kind of going back and forth over it a few times. And I'll flip it over here in just a few seconds for you. So now, if I turn it over, can you see how it's right? It's got that white line outlining it now and embossing it. So your stylus tools on your vellum are going to help give it a great look. While I have this out, let's just go ahead and let's color the cross. We'll get the cross colored here. And I had this mask piece. And this is basically just, what do you want to call it? A Post-it note. There's sticky up here at the top. And I'm going to cover the cross. Let's get rid of our paper piercing mat. And Stampin' Up's paper piercing mat is actually a lot longer. I just cut mine down so it would fit in the little storage thing that I have right here on my desk. And let's get the old olive out. And let's clean our brush. And now I'm just gonna, oops, I don't want any ink on the cross. Just gonna go around. And so another way to add color to your vellum is with your blending brushes. So if I take this off and flip it around, you're gonna see that shadowing of the, what do I pull here? Mossy Meadow behind the cross. In this case, I used shaded spruce, cut it out with the everyday arches, and now I have a beautiful element that I'm going to be adding to a card. But look at the difference. There's the shaded spruce on the back, but look how the vellum dims that. That's why we call that a stained glass look. So you can absolutely change the look by using a blending brush on your paper. Another way to change up the look is with a brayer, and you can grab any ink that you want to work with. And make sure our brayer has little feet on it. So when I work with it, I like to make sure that the feet are pointing up. And if you've not worked with the brayer, you kind of want to pull it up as you go. You don't want to drag it across the plastic edges because you really don't want those lines on your vellum. And I can just go ahead and add color to my vellum just by adding it with the brush. So, or the vellum. With the brayer, guys, oh my goodness gracious, I played in the snow way too much. And you're gonna see when we work on adhering, this one was much darker, and then I die cut from it because I wanted the sheerness, but I wanted a little bit of color. I didn't want that white look, so that frosted look. So that's another way. Something else that you can also do is you can just, again, anything that you do to paper, guys, you can do to vellum, okay? But a lot of times because of its texture and the fact that it's sheer, a lot of people just don't think of vellum as paper and using all of the techniques with it, okay? So here in this case, I just played with the plaid. And it also is a great showcase for you of the differences in the bullet tip between the Stampin' Blends and the Stampin' Write markers. Can you see this wider side over here as I was drawing some lines and doodling on the paper? This is the bullet tip from the Stampin' Write markers. This nice fine lines here are done with the bullet tip from the Stampin' Write markers. So kind of a justification for having both in your collection. And then just as a reminder, this is what the paper started like. And then this is how I colored it now that I finally got down to the base of where it's at. So now let's look at some different ways to adhere it. That's everybody seems to be their greatest challenge with working with vellum. So one of the easiest ways to adhere vellum is to simply to disguise the adhesive. So in this case, I'm just gonna put my embellishment down, and what I mean, and I want a little bit of this. It's a brand new container, so it's all coming out pretty fast. So let me just tap this a little bit over here and bring my vellum in. So I'm gonna lay this down, and then I'm gonna take my next piece and I'm gonna put it down as well. Let's get rid of these little overhangs. So in this case on the back, I'm not worried about adhesive showing up because nobody's going to see this side. And this is actually, behind this embellishment is actually where I'm going to put my own adhesive, the adhesive that I want so that it doesn't show through to the front of the card. I'm going to actually, oops. I'm going to hide it. So kind of putting it where nobody's going to see it is one of the easiest ways to adhere vellum. So it's on there now. Now, well, oops, I gotta let it dry, but it's on there. Now we'll come back in just a second, and if you want to tack down this top edge, we're gonna visit that in just a second. But if you're trying to put a little bit of vellum down, hiding your adhesive behind an embellishment, behind a stamped layer, behind a greeting is a great way to go ahead and do that. Another way to hide your adhesive is to sandwich your vellum, okay? So in this case, I have 2 pieces of cardstock that I've cut the large circle from. So I'm gonna start with this piece first. And I'm just gonna, and then we'll come down here. I'm gonna grab my vellum, make sure I'm putting it on the right way. And now I can put a little bit of adhesive around it. And in this case, I'm just sandwiching. And I just want to flip it upside down. Yep, my circle's all lined up. I've sandwiched that vellum between, okay? So we've got it all sandwiched. And then just a reminder again, so I've got my little pieces here that I die cut. See how pretty they are? They're so fragile. It's another one of my favorite things to do is to use vellum as a bit of a filler. I just put a little bit down right here for now. I'm going to show you how to go back in and add more adhesive. But I know that I've got a little element that I'm going to be able to hide. So, oops. Okay. And I have the hello greeting with the bow already done in a little die cut circle. We'll put a little bit of adhesive on here. And then that's going to hold those pieces down, okay? We're going to come back and talk about that flap because that flap is kind of the same way we're going to touch that one up just a little bit. And then another way to hide your adhesive is, so I have a piece of vellum here. Ignore this card. We're going to change something up a little bit. But I want to, you know, have just a little bit of glue, or maybe I'm going to pop something up. Maybe I don't have a way of spreading this real thin. So I'm going to put that glue down. I've just got little dots of it. And when you put that glue down, another favorite way of it hiding the adhesive is now to take your embellishments and to put it over top of wherever those drops of glue are, and you can hide your adhesives underneath of your embellishments as well. So that's another great way of hiding that. So my recent discovery are these silicone brushes. And one of the things that I've been using before these was I was using a silicone mat and a dauber to literally paint my vellum. Well, daubers aren't really that cheap. And over time, the sponge part will get hard, and then I have to throw it out and start with another one. And adhesive on the vellum, on the silicone, literally just peels right off. And I personally love this set. I had been working with just this one, and then in my makeup drawer, literally, I had some of these for painting on glitter during Mardi Gras, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can use these in my craft studio. So I had to order a second set because I still need them for my Mardi Gras glitter and stuff like that. And so the way that these are going to work is absolutely amazing. And the size tip that you work with is going to depend on the area. So I used to just put my glitter out like that and pick it up with the dauber. And now what I do instead is I use my flat brush and I just paint it nice and flat. I don't like working with adhesive sheets because I don't know, adhesive sheets get real sticky. They stick to my fingers. They stick to everything. Some adhesive sheets actually have a bit of a pattern that will show through your glitter. But when I paint this on and then I rub it down onto cardstock, you're not going to see it at all. You won't see a bit of that adhesive. And proof of that, if I show you, I put this cross on, that way on the back of this, you can't see that adhesive at all. And remember we talked earlier about fixing this flap here? So now I can take a little bit of a smaller brush and I can come in and I can just lay that down nice and flat, and I can come in under my corner. This is why I love the different sizes, because when I was trying to do it with this, I ended up with too much adhesive. And then you'll be able to just let these dry, and if you've got too much on it, you can just peel it right off. So now my corners are secure. If there's other places I want, great. And remember those different tips. Look at this fine itty bitty little pointy tip. So now that I've got my florals, now I know about where I want it to be. So I'm going to just paint my liquid glue on, press and hold for a second, and now it's going to hold in place where I want it to be. So I'm able just to come up in those really, really fine areas with these. I did link these for you above, but again, these just revolutionized my work with vellum. And actually any other little corner. There's always going to be a time when you don't get your adhesive all the way to the corner. And if you've ever tried to squeeze some of your liquid glue in there, sometimes you over squeeze and then you get glue everywhere, or glue onto a cardstock or surface that you don't want. So not just for working with vellum, I have found that I'm able to go in like here. So this edge up here is lifted a little bit. And I want to finish it because I didn't get my glue all the way to the edge. Because I'm talking and doing two things at once here. But now I can paint a little bit of that glitter on, or that adhesive on. So it's a great way also to come in here and reseal those corners, is by working with these silicone. And again, because it's silicone, you can peel the adhesives off and things like that. So liquid glue, silicone brushes, silicone mats, perfect for that. And then again, have some fun changing up your vellum. Don't be afraid to stamp on it, to color it. Try my favorite thing of embossing it, coloring from behind, even brayering it. And real quick, let's go back through while we're talking about brayering. And let's put that aside so I can peel it off and not have adhesive everywhere. This is just real fun. This is the arches. So we've got a little flap there. Got a little tag for something coming up. And let's bring my paper in. And I've got this one. This one will show up a lot better for us. So I have this piece of vellum with a white background. But I want to change that up. I don't want it to be stark white. And so it doesn't just have to be, you know, something like this that you're going to change the background, the look, or the color of. So I can even change the look, and I'm just kind of blending it in here. But I can change the background of any of my vellums. And I'm coloring on the back side, the side that's more muted than the front side. And so I can give it, see if I can hold these side by side so you can see the difference. So one now has some color. This has some darkness to it. And this one doesn't have any color to it. So I can change up the background. I could take a darker blue and I could darken up this blue background as well. So have some fun playing, guys. Don't be afraid of the vellum. Make sure you scoop up this beautiful floral and gingham vellum. You're gonna have so much fun playing with it. So any questions at all, guys, let me know. And for those of you that are getting some of the snow that we got historically yesterday in Louisiana, take time to play in it. It's beautiful, it's fun, it brings out the kid in you, so create some memories with the historic snowfalls that are coming across the South. But be safe, everyone. Take care.